Welcome to Madame Raven's. This way to the library. She's been expecting you.
Hello, my darlings, and a very happy birthday to yours truly. Today, for this event, I have some stories from Mythology Loves Horror that she was kind enough to send to me. Thank you, Elena. I hope you all enjoy them and have a wonderful weekend. The Church Grimm. If you grow up in England, there's a story you'll hear, one of the old legends that's all but died out in our modern era. It isn't popular anymore, but the tale of the Church Grimm still gets whispered around fires at night and told in hushed tones to curious children. While it isn't as bloody or monstrous as some stories, its power comes from how rooted it is in the heart of small towns and villages. The Church Grimm is a spirit that oversees the welfare of the church where it was buried, and it helps protect the churchyard from vandals and grave robbers. Whenever a new graveyard was built, it was believed that the first person buried there had to spend eternity guarding the other souls from evil. So, in order to prevent a human from shouldering this burden, a stray black dog was sacrificed. The Grimm was also said to ring church bells the night before a villager died, and they're associated with bringing bad luck if someone spots one. They often appear as black dogs with red eyes. But other animals, such as pigs and lambs, have also been used to guard the churches. There are countless records of people encountering this type of spirit, and even some of the most devout, honest churchgoers have sworn that they have seen it. When I was 8, my grandmother told me all of this, which had been passed down from her family who came to the United States from Tewkesbury, England. I'm now ashamed to admit it, but back then I didn't believe her. I called her a liar. I told her that ghosts aren't real. I remember how sadly she looked at me, but she never tried to argue her point. I wish I had trusted her words, but I guess I had to learn my lesson the hard way. I grew up in Liberty Hill, Texas, which holds so much history in a single block that the other states get jealous. One night, not long after I turned 17, I was coming back from my boyfriend Max's house. A thick blanket of dark clouds had gathered that night, and I was hurrying so that I wouldn't get caught in the storm. Mist had started to creep across the ground, and I was trying not to trip when I heard a whimper. The noise was definitely coming from inside the Bittick Cemetery, which nearly made me decide not to go in. There had been a string of murders in the area lately, and since I didn't have any form of protection on me, I didn't want to get caught alone. Then the sound came again, and my heart twisted. I couldn't just ignore an animal that was in trouble, so I took a nervous breath and pushed open the wrought iron gate. I cringed as the hinges squeaked, but I resolutely continued forward. I called quietly to the dog as I weaved among the headstones, but in the gathering mist, my phone flashlight wasn't doing me much good. I thought I saw its eyes glinting once, but it was just the jeweled eyes of a doll leaning up against a headstone. I was about to abandon my search, especially since my thin sneakers were beginning to soak through, when I saw a little black puppy. It was curled up next to an unmarked gravestone in the furthest corner of the graveyard, and even from 10 feet away, I could see it shivering. I called out to it, and I smiled as it perked its ears towards me. "Hey, little pupper, come here." My voice carried the excited tone that most dogs loved, but the puppy just ignored me. I moved in closer, and when it didn't try to run away, I gently scooped it up. It let out another whimper, and I began to check it over since it sounded like it could be hurt. As I was examining it, I noticed that it was wearing a raggedy old collar with a tag, and apparently his name was Kirk. He seemed fine, and he had even given my hand a friendly, tentative lick. "Hey, Kirk. It's okay, boy. I'm going to bring you home with me now. Then tomorrow we'll figure out where you live and we'll get you home." He gave me a happy little wolf, and I could almost believe that he understood me. I was about to turn around and head for the gate when Kirk jumped out of my arms, his hackles raised. I didn't see anything, but I heard the hushed sounds of voices. I quickly shut off my light, scuttling quietly over a large gravestone to try and hide myself. I paused, careful not to make a sound, and I panicked as the voices became clearer. "Are you sure she's there?" "Yeah, definitely. I saw her light over that way. When we catch her, gonna make sure she can't move, then slit her throat. Yep, then I slice her up just like the others." I had heard enough. I needed to get out of there, and I frantically tried to get Kirk's attention. He wouldn't turn his head, though, and his hackles were slowly raising. I was starting to shake, but before I could move to pick him up, his eyes began to glow. I halted, my hand outstretched towards him, and I blinked rapidly. At first I thought I was imagining things, or that the two had some sort of red light that I was seeing, but I quickly ruled out those possibilities. Kirk's eyes were glowing ruby red in the darkness, and no amount of blinking was making my weird vision go away. "Kirk." My hushed voice sounded tiny, and for the moment I had regrets to 5 years old when I believed there was a monster under my bed. I hadn't believed in the paranormal for 12 years, so this was kicking me pretty far out of my comfort zone. I was still down on my knees, hands outstretched, when Kirk began to growl. I couldn't see him that well, but I watched as the level of his eyes began to rise. He let out a bone-chilling howl, and I could hear the anger and sadness woven into it. As the last note faded into the mist, one of the men let out a surprised shout, and Kirk bounded towards them. I quickly lost sight of him, but anguished screams and the sound of tearing flesh began to slice through the fog. One of them shot a gun, but either it missed Kirk or it had no effect on the dog. About 5 minutes ticked by, each one feeling slower than the last, before I heard Kirk coming back to me. I turned my flashlight back on, instantly regretting my decision. Kirk had returned to his puppy form, but he was dragging an arm with him, like it was a stick. He dropped the macabre gift at my feet, crouching down and wagging his tail playfully. I half laughed, half sobbed, and before I could think further, I picked him up and hugged him to me. I realized that I wasn't afraid of him at all, and my grandmother's words about not judging a book by its cover crossed my mind. "Thank you, good boy. Thank you so much." He licked the tears that were streaming down my cheeks until I stopped crying, and he nudged his head against mine with a happy woof. I sat him back down, then hoisted myself unsteadily to my feet with the help of a headstone. I was still trembling, but I was able to step carefully over the dismembered arm and get myself past the bodies without vomiting. Kirk followed me, weaving playfully around my ankles like he was herding a sheep. When I reached the gate, he stopped, whining sadly as I passed through the wrought iron. I looked back at him and wondered what would happen if he passed through. Could he even do it? I realized that Kirk wasn't a typical dog, but this didn't stop me from wanting to take care of him. I figured it was worth a shot. And in the worst-case scenario, he would remain trapped here where he was always used to being. I squatted down and clapped my hands together excitedly to call him to me. "Kirk, come here, boy. Come on, you can do it." He ran towards me, his tail wagging madly. Just as he hit the line of the gate, he crumpled and looked as though he had slammed headfirst into an invisible wall. I felt my heart retch painfully and wanted him to be able to leave his phantasmal prison. I walked over to him, picked him up gently, cradled him to my chest. He felt so solid, so alive, and even knowing what he was, I couldn't bring myself to abandon my little hero. His loneliness was palatable when I first saw him, and I didn't want him stuck like that for an eternity. I carried him to the gate, stopping just shy of the threshold. I had no idea what to do, but a memory came floating back to me. My grandpa had been a preacher, and I recalled how he had said during one of his sermons that sometimes spirits just need someone to tell them it was okay to be free. I knew I was risking the chance that Kirk would simply disappear, but I wanted him to have a choice. I took a deep breath, my brain scrambling to formulate the right words. "Kirk, I release you, your spirit, from guard duties. May you be free to travel wherever you want." My voice had gained confidence as I spoke, and by the end I was sweeping an arm out in a grand gesture, as though I could make the gate allow Kirk to pass through by sheer force of will. He had held perfectly still this whole time, and he hadn't even tried to squirm around or jump from my arms like a normal puppy would have. I looked down at his furry little face, closed my eyes, and took a large step forward. When I opened them, I was outside of the cemetery, but my arms were empty. I spun around, but Kirk wasn't on the other side of the gate. I called to him and checked inside the graveyard, but I couldn't find him. My shoulders dropped, and I let out a defeated sigh. I began walking home, my soaked sneakers squashing sadly as I made my way through a mile and a half of near darkness. My phone had died at some point, but I knew the route well enough that I could still navigate just fine. I finally caught sight of my apartment stoop, and sitting on the topmost step was a little black puppy. "Kirk!" I ran up to him, and he barked excitedly. As I went to reach for him, he jumped, landing in my arms in an ungraceful, wiggling ball of fur. He didn't stay for long, but every now and then, especially on dark nights, I hear a scratching at my door that tells me Kirk has come to visit. My New Brother. July 30th, 1838. Mother brought me home this journal. She told me that Dr. Bradley said that since I'm 9 now, I need to learn to express myself better. I don't know what that means, but Mother's just said that I need to write my thoughts down in this at least once a week, and that she will check to make sure I've done so. I hate it already. August 7th, 1838. Dr. Bradley came to visit our house yesterday, after spending many hours with my mother, who was screaming for so much of the time. He said that I could meet my new sibling. When I looked at my sister, she was small, smaller than a dog. Both her hair and face were red, and she screamed just as loudly as Mother had. I hate her already, for I've not slept at all this night because of how she cries. August 23rd, 1838. Mother will not stop wailing, because baby Angela has gone to be with the angels. I can sleep better without Angela crying, but now all Mother does is sob and wail. My Aunt Beatrice came over to our house to remove our only mirror, since Mother asked her to. I did not understand why, but Aunt Beatrice explained that Mother wants this done so that fairies cannot steal the baby's soul through the mirror. It must stay out of the house during the funeral, and we cannot hang another mirror for 2 years unless we want bad luck. Aunt Beatrice also told me that, since we have had a funeral for Angela next week, I must be on my best behavior. I've never been to a funeral, but Aunt Beatrice says that all of our relatives will come to pay their respects, though I don't understand what that means. I hope I get to play with my cousin Matthew when he arrives. July 14th, 1839. Because Mother has not made me use this journal, it has been nearly a year since I last wrote, but she's forcing me to once again. My teacher, Miss Jones, says that my penmanship is much better than it used to be, and that I should try to write more in each of my entries. Dr. Bradley said that Mother's sadness is finally better, and that things should go back to normal for us now. He said that he expects for Mother to show me more love again, since she has not even hugged me since the day we buried Angelica. I hope that Dr. Bradley is right, because if Mom never cares about me again, I shall be very, very sad. July 22nd, 1839. She did it again. Mother finally started paying me attention. Then she goes and brings me home a brother who's my same age. She says he was abandoned and needed a family, but I know the truth. She just does not love me enough. How could she, if all she wants is more children? Why am I not enough for her? Her new child's name is Walter, and he has not said a word since arriving this morning. I've tried to ask him about his favorite food, or if he has any toys, or even if he wants to play with mine, but he still wouldn't say a word, no matter how nice I was. He must hate me already. July 29th, 1839. Something peculiar just happened. Walter, who has a beak-like nose, now has a button nose. Mother did not believe me, and he still refuses to talk to me whatsoever, but I know it has changed. Also his hair, which had started off jet black, now has a distinctive red sheen to it. I asked Dr. Bradley if a boy my age could grow differently colored hair, but he says only babies' hairs change color. I told Mother about the difference, but she just said that I was being silly, and to stop trying to make my new brother feel odd. If she would only look, then she would see what I mean. August 6th, 1839. I've been watching him every day, and there's always a new, though small, change. His hair is now fully red, and his once blue eyes are now green. All he does is stare at me in a creepy, blank way, and it gives me nightmares. During their weekly card game, I informed Aunt Beatrice, Dr. Bradley, and Mother about this, but they keep dismissing my claims. They say I have no idea what I'm talking about, and that I'm being insensitive to my new brother. Mother said that I will need to be put on a special kind of medicine if I keep up my silly behavior. I need to prove to her that I am not making this up. August 15th, 1839. Now he has lost his freckles. Mother, of course, did not believe me. Now I have to take these white pills twice a day, and I hate how they make me feel. I feel like I have no energy, and like I'm wandering about in a fog when I try to remember things. Maybe Dr. Bradley is right, and in my stress over losing my sister, I'm unfairly taking my anger out on Walter? He says I'm going through replacement issues, whatever those are, and that it is normal when a new sibling is brought home. If only Walter would talk to me, then I'm sure I could get him to explain things. He talks to Mother all the time, and even calls her Mama, but will not respond to anything I say. Mother says that I'm scaring Walter when I say he's changing. Each time I bring it up, she comforts him. And yesterday she took him to get ice cream, but left me alone at home. Why does she hate me? August 23rd, 1839. He has now grown a mole on his left hand, right under his third knuckle. That's where mine is. August 29th, 1839. Mother says I am to stop speaking around Walter for a while, until I can stop scaring him. So far this has been very hard, but the tears in Mother's eyes make me try. September 5th, 1839. When I went outside to play in the forest, Walter followed me. He said nothing, and for a while I said nothing, but he kept pace with me for 1/4 mile, and he still never said a single word to me. So once we were well out of Mother's earshot, I started bombarding him with questions to see if I could get him to speak. No response. I told him the sky was green to see if he would accuse me of fibbing, or correct me to feel smarter, but he did not. I then said that I eat boogers and bugs to see if he would be disgusted, but there was no weird looks or even a laugh. All he does is sit and stare at me. Something's wrong with my new brother. September 8th, 1839. Mother has lost her mind. This morning she dragged me out of bed and then called the constable and claimed that I had snuck into her house. I told her I'd never left my room last night, so how could I have snuck in? She told the constable that she had no idea who I am, and that I was likely a thief there to steal her son's things. Walter was by her side the entire time, staring at me, with those eerie, unblinking eyes that always unnerve me. I tried to argue with Mother, and I told the constable that if he went and got Dr. Bradley, he would say who I was. The constable laughed, and he said that he refused to bother the good doctor over a thieving street orphan. Mother was adamant that she only had one child, and that no child of hers had freckles like I do. I've never had freckles, though, ever. She tried to take my journal away, but Walter said it was not his, so I was allowed to keep it. As I was being taken outside, I screamed for my mother, but she would not respond. She slammed the door behind us, but the moment later Walter came out. He watched as the constable shoved me in a wagon, and we began bumping down the road. Walter gave me a wave and a grin. It was the only time I'd ever seen him smile or heard him speak. The fairies will come for you soon. Then you can meet your new mother, as I did. April 27th, 1852. He laughs at me from the shadows. Every night he comes to my barred window, his small hands grasping towards me. I scream and scream and scream until the orderlies come. Then they give me the hush-hush medicine. What they fail to realize is that I am him, and he is me. He has been me for years now, so I had to spend every day becoming him. Now I can shrink in size, and I can change my hair and face just like he can. The only difference is that I have no innate magic, so I have to cause my transformation via other means. The first time I changed the color of my hair, I used my cellmate's blood to dye it red. The orderlies thought he had escaped. They didn't know I'd stuffed him inside my mattress until his corpse began stinking. That made my changes harder, for I was put into solitary confinement. I stole a dinner knife one night, slipping it between my thighs when the nurse wasn't looking. And that's how I acquired my new nose. I took it from the doctor who came to evaluate me the day after. Oh, it was beautiful, how his white shirt morphed into crimson as his blood ran down his nose and down his chin. I wore his nose for nearly 2 hours before they discovered he was missing. They had failed to hear him scream because of how far away my cell was, and they thought his little pistol would keep him safe. That kept him as safe as my mother kept me. I still think about her sometimes, but it's so infrequently these days that I have all but forgotten her face. Mayhaps my new brother stole her heart as well, and maybe he wears that at night. She's not worth my thoughts, nor shall I waste any more time thinking on the woman who betrayed me. He is the one who brought me my journal, which he said was an apology. I did not accept his words, and soon I learned that he had only come to steal my adult face. He wants to forever look like me, and will stop at nothing to do so. Maybe I can use him as a distraction one night to free myself. When the orderlies come to give me my medicine, maybe I can get him to come inside of here, and they will chase after him instead of the real me. Or maybe I'm becoming him, and soon the fairies will whisk me away to a lovely new home. Or I shall die alone. Or I shall die alone in this cell. I used my blood to write this, so it seems like the most logical conclusion. But maybe, just maybe, I will live, and then I can find a way to change myself. Was I ever me? Was Walter my name? Did Mother bring me home after she lost the baby? Or was I always there? I know not. Shh, shh, here they come. They will take away my journal, and they will tell me that any sinner can find redemption if they repent to the Lord. Maybe the Fey King will take better pity on a soul as wretched as mine. If only I could free myself. So quoth this raven. I hope you enjoyed, my darlings. Thank you to Alana for sending me these wonderful stories. I have a few more of hers to read later on. One that I will probably do as a collaboration. Haven't gotten that far. It's been a crazy week. I am feeling better. Thank you all for coming to listen. And special thanks to my Patreon supporters, Ermin, Darren and Jennifer, Laura, and Charlotte Emerson. If you like this, please hit the little button to let me know. If you didn't, hit the little button to let me know. Leave a comment. I'm always glad to talk with you, my darlings. I'm open to suggestions and criticisms, critiques. If you have not subscribed, please do so and ring the little bell so you know when to come up and see me. And I will talk to you next time, my darlings. Farewell.